the little Aussie battler. I wish I had abs. I'd get more sales then, I can tell you. I mean, sales is pretty easy. It's a numbers game, right? So you knock on 100 doors, you might get one sale. And I like to talk, as you know. You wear people down eventually, I find. I've got really good customers that I'll ring up and I can get a sale out of any time, right?
You never told me how you got into furniture industry.
Okay, so I was working in the banking industry. I'd been there for 15, 16 years. And a friend of mine actually, who was working as an agent for a factory in China, he was looking, there was another factory that he wasn't representing that had approached him to do some work for them. And because of the conflict of interest, didn't want to pursue that, but asked if I was interested. So he rang me. It was actually a New Year's Eve. He rang me up on the New Year's Eve and said, do you want to have a look at this? And I took 2 weeks off annual leave from the bank, flew over to China, and my job interview was actually working the stand for this particular factory at the main show in Guangzhou. And yeah, the rest is history. So I started there. Dixie Cummings was my first customer. Rob Cummings was my first customer, actually.
Really?
And then fast forward 18 months and I start working for him.
Okay.
So that's pretty much how it started.
And when was that? What year?
I reckon I'm 12 years now. I was,
So around 2011?
Yeah, 2011, 12, yeah.
Okay. So and before that, banking industry?
Banking, yes. Yeah.
What did you do?
Stealing money? No. No, I was actually in imports, exports, letters of credit. I was foreign exchange, that sort of thing. So, but nothing senior. It was more sort of the menial stuff, lower level stuff. So
it's a big change, like from banking into furniture. It's totally different.
Absolutely. And this same friend who I talked to today, he actually said to me, he said, once you start in furniture, he said, you'll be in it for life. And yeah, it's good. It's better than sitting behind a desk for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, get to travel, get to do podcasts. You feel like, I mean, it's good.
Yeah, I come from like once in, you never get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I started like when I was 20, 36 now, so 16 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes quickly, right? The time flies, actually.
Yeah, thanks.
So it's quite a dynamic industry. I really enjoy it. I've had no regrets ever about the change. It's been really good for me. So, and I've worked with two of arguably the biggest wholesalers in Australia now. So I've cut my teeth reasonably well. So yeah, it's been good.
So 12 years, yeah, time flies. So like, and then you flew to China.
I flew to China, yeah, so I took 2 weeks annual leave from the bank, flew to China, did the show, had some immediate success with the show. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was just lucky enough to have a little bit of success with Dixie, actually. So, and from that, they offered me the job. Flew home, resigned gave the bank 4 weeks notice, and
boom.
And then boom, I'm in, yeah. So
boom in furniture industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So and then like in China, like how did you feel? So because it's totally different, right?
Yeah, it was foreign. It was the first time I'd travelled to China.
First time
I'd been to China. I was very lucky because this same friend of mine travelled with me, so I wasn't alone. It would have been a lot harder, I think, for me had I travelled alone. But he sort of guided me. He travelled with me, which was good. It was good to have the company. He knew what he was doing. Because he'd been in the furniture industry a lot longer than I have. So He knew what he was doing, which made it easier for me. I just sort of had to follow. And then the only time I was really by myself when I was there was when I was working the stand. So,
but then how did you work on the stand? Like, did you have any knowledge about?
I had a price sheet and I had no knowledge of furniture at all. But what I do, you just talk to people, you engage with people. That's the secret to sales is it's the engagement of a person.
Engagement, right?
You need to engage the person.
We are going to do our first show.
Yeah.
Right, like we've got Ben. He hasn't been in furniture industry.
Yep.
I took him out to the factory, show him, the product, how it's produced. He's talking to furniture factories. He kind of some sort of knowing what he's selling now.
Yep.
Right, but so you just like the price list. That's it.
That's all I could help the customer with. I had a price list. I'd had literally a 15-minute introduction into the furniture. They took me around, explained what each range was, but I had no idea. I literally had no idea, and all I could really help my customers with was the pricing. Everything else, they knew more than what I knew, right? So, and that's what I would say to them. I would say, guys, you probably could tell me more about this furniture than I can tell you. I can help you with pricing. If there's any questions, I'll follow up and I'll get the answers for you and follow that through. So it's just about being honest, but being able to engage with someone, that's the key.
Yeah, cool. Like, and did you experience any difficulties? Like, was it difficult at any point where?
I was scared. I was nervous, and I was nervous the whole time. Like it wasn't easy. So, but look, it was just one of those things. I'd committed to doing it, so I just had to get through it, and it was difficult, and so it was a 4-day show, and I was unsure for probably 3 of the 4 days whether or not I would pursue the furniture industry. But it was sort of that 4th day I had a little bit of luck. I had a little bit of luck with some sales, and the factory really encouraged me to move on with them. So I went back and I made the decision to move on. So
and if you went back in time now, what advice would you give yourself like back then? Would you do everything the same?
Oh, I think I'd do it the same, because I've had some great success since I've moved into the industry. I've worked for some really good people. I guess I probably, if there's one thing I probably could have done, is I could have got there, because I literally flew in the day before the show. I probably would have given myself a day or two and gone in and probably brushed up on product. But then I think the good thing for me is because I was honest about not knowing too much, I think people could see that, right? That I was genuine, because I could have tried to make things, I could have tried to make things up and try and hustle people, but I just stayed true to myself and just said, "Oh, look, I don't know. You guys will know more than I do," and it worked for me. So,
were you taking over Australian market only?
Australasia, basically, for this company, and then actually what ended up happening, the factory had a change of management or middle management, and so they sort of self-imploded after a couple of years. There were 2 partners. They had a falling out. So they sort of self-imploded, which made it my decision easy to move across to Dixie Cummings at the time, because Rob Cummings had asked me to, had a position available in New South Wales, which is my home state. And so it made the decision easy for me. So to move across and work for him as a wholesaler.
And did he offer it to you just like right away, or how did it happen?
No, it was about 18 months. Him and I was selling to him actually, so he became a customer of mine. We just opened dialogue as you would a customer supplier relationship, and then sort of 18 months later, he was actually at the show and he said, "Mate, come and work for me. I've got a position available. Why don't you come and work?" And it was good. The timing was good. I had a young family, so working for the factory kept me away, throughout the year. I'd go across for 2-week blocks with shows and any new development, and I had a young family, so the Dixie Cummings role allowed me the opportunity to stay at home but still be in the industry, and it just opened up a network of people for me. That's probably the only. If I could do things differently, actually going back to the last question, is I would have loved to have worked for Dixie Cummings before I worked for the factory, because the network that opened up for me, customer base, because I knew nobody in the industry, absolutely nobody, right? So I literally started from scratch, and that's the key. It's your network, and establishing your network of customer. That's the key as well.
Just to knowing people.
Knowing people, yeah. Because sales is pretty easy. It's a numbers game, right? So you knock on 100 doors, you might get one sale.
Yeah.
And it's the same. The more people you know, the percentages are better for sale. That's 101.
So for about 18 months, you were like a sales rep for.
Yeah, as an agent, yeah.
Like an agent,
yeah.
Right? Like, and was it enough in terms of income?
No, that was difficult, but I knew going into it that I was going to have a tough time.
Yeah.
Because I was literally a startup in my own little agency business. So I expected that it was going to be a tough time, and it was. It's certainly strain. There was a bit of financial strain and marital strain, because if you're not earning income, the wife's not happy. So, yeah. So anyway, look, it was tough, yeah, for about 12 months. But yeah, as I started to sell more, obviously your income grows, and I just believed in myself, right? And I'd made the decision to commit to it, and then once I did that, I just had the belief that I could make it work, and that was pretty much my mindset, was to make it work regardless. So that's pretty much where we're at.
And have you been doing any sales before that?
No, banking. So no. There was no sales. Yeah.
For your whole life, banking.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah.
Wow, and like no sales.
No sales. I mean, I had part-time jobs, so I'd work. I had part-time jobs on weekends, working as a barman, working behind bars and clubs and stuff like that. I don't know whether that puts you in good stead, because you're not really selling people. That's not really a sales role, but you're engaging with people, you're talking, and I like to talk, as you know. I do like a chat. So.
Yeah, I think that's the key for the sales, right? To be open and to be like talkative.
Yes.
So like, I think would you agree that it just kind of came naturally to you, like selling in furniture industry?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, you have to know what you're talking about, right? So, but I think because I was honest and upfront with everybody, I got a grace period, right? So people give you a little bit of a grace period to work into your role and work into your job. If I'm 18 months on and I still don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't know what the furniture's about, then there's a problem.
Yeah, correct.
So, but yeah, you get a bit of a grace period, because people realise that you're new to the industry, and most people are reasonable. Like most people that I've dealt with in this industry are reasonable. There are a lot of different people that you deal with, but all in all, they're pretty reasonable people. So honesty and just I won't say it came naturally, but it was. I can talk, so
yeah. Do you find that like Australian market is different, for example, with American market or with English, like European markets, in terms of people, sales, customers? Did you ever?
Yeah, look, I don't know. I don't know. Look, I think the Australian market, you still have to ask for an order, right? So when you sell, you can't be afraid to actually ask somebody for an order. I think the Australians are, and when I was working on the stand for this factory, there were a lot of foreign or Westerners that had their own little group. So there was a Canadian fellow that looked after the American market. There was a Middle East market and those sort of things. They're a little more direct. So if they come on the stand and they like something, they want exclusivity and they'll write an order. The Australians are a little more, I wouldn't say reluctance, not the key, but they're not as, they're a little bit more, I don't even think it's cautious. I don't know. They're a little bit more reserved. They will, and you would probably know this because you supply a few Australians now. It takes forever for them to order a container, right? So they can't just see something like it and commit to it. They'll want it shipped over. They want to see the sample, and it's a little different, I feel. That was just my experience working in that factory because, like I said, customers in other countries, they would walk on a stand. If they saw it and they liked it, they would order on the day. I'd never, even after that 18 months when I was working for that factory, I never had an Australian come on and commit right away. They just don't do that. They want additional information. They want images. They want to take it home, and they want to, they'll think about it. And whereas, the rest of the world, mate, they'd walk on and they would make commitment on the day, and pretty much they would be writing checks or they would be EFTing, remitting funds for deposits. Whereas we're just not like that.
Okay. So from being like a sales rep for a factory,
yep,
you've gone into working for like one of the biggest, if not the biggest, wholesaler in the country.
Yep.
And what did you do? How was it like?
Well, I started as the regional rep for New South Wales. Sales, yes. And again, like I didn't have any relationships with people because, your regional New South Wales, I'm talking to a different bunch of people that typically aren't travelling to China. They've got a whole different committees, and they have committees and other people that do that. So again, it's just, I felt though with that role, structure was the key. So, and what I mean by that is I had worked out my runs. So I would do southern New South Wales 1 week. I would do west, I would do northwest, and then I would do the coast. Then I'd have a week back in Sydney, and then I would do it all. So I was very structured in my approach, and I was consistent with my travel. So if I said I was going to be back, people basically knew when I was going to visit because I was regimented and had that structure in place. So they could count on me being back in 5 weeks or sometimes it didn't always work that way because you'd have a show that you'd have to do, so you'd knock a week out. But generally speaking, I'd try and do it every 5 weeks. I'd be back in the same shops and same towns. And that worked for me. It was good.
So you just go like...
I would just drive, yeah. I'd be away. I'd leave on a Tuesday, be back on a Friday night. So I'd leave the Tuesday morning and it'd be a 4-day trip, and I'd be staying in country towns in motels and going out to, as far south as Young, out to Dubbo, Moree, Ballina, Lismore.
Just
driving.
Just drive yourself.
Just driving. That was my office. The car was my office, so it was good. But the country people, the country people out in regional, they're really good people. So they're really good people, and I think they appreciate reps and people making an effort, right? Because it's, Moree's 9 hours in the car. So, and I think people just appreciated the fact that you'd get there and get in front of them as regularly as I did, actually. So
then you would actually come there, and then how would you sell? Would you say, okay?
Yeah, well, you'd have a catalogue. So Harvey Norman was one of the biggest accounts, right? So, and is the biggest account that a lot of the wholesalers in Australia have. They're a key account for most wholesalers. So you'd have a catalogue. You'd have a catalogue of product that they've already selected for core range. So I would, before I'd go in and see the proprietor, I would actually do a walk around the floor and see what they didn't have on the floor. And that way I could target. I was very selective. I would walk in and I'd say, hey, I noticed you don't have this on the floor, that on the floor, or whatever, and I would target, because there's no, the key is getting product on the floor when you're a wholesaler. That is the key to have. I mean, yes, you've got to get the sale, but equally as important, if not more importantly, it's got to get on the floor, because if it's not on the floor, it won't sell.
Yeah.
If it's on the floor, you've got a chance, right? So it gives you a chance at a sale.
And what is the procedure to get it on the floor? So
Beg. You've got to beg. No, there's various things you do. You would we would have data on a particular product and how well it was selling in other areas.
okay.
So you had data, and you had to do a little bit of research. So you knew what was working well in other areas, and that was one of the things you would you could do. You'd go in and you'd say, look, it's working well in Sydney Metro, or it's working well for Jim out in Dubbo. Why don't you give it? So there were, there's different techniques. You've just got to sort of, again, it comes back, I guess, to knowing your product and knowing how, if you're well informed, it makes it easier to sell.
Okay.
Doesn't always say you're going to get a sale, but it definitely makes it easier.
So let's imagine, right? Like, I'm a retail shop.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming to me. You walk through and say, listen, Sash, I noticed you don't have this.
Yeah.
It sells well there. And then how would it go from there?
Well, generally they'd say, no, get out of my shop. No, they would say, no, it would be, a lot of the time people, a lot of the time they're if they've got confidence in me as a person, and they've got confidence in what I'm telling them, generally you can convert them, and generally they'll say, yeah, okay, let's give it a go, right? So, but you don't get on with everyone either, right? You don't get on with everyone, so I'm not going to say it was like that for me in every shop. It was, you've got people where just personalities don't clash, or they've got a favourite wholesaler, and I may not have been. As a person, they probably don't, they had nothing against me, but the company that I represented, maybe they did. That maybe there was an after-sales issue that they'd had a problem with previously. So then they, so yeah, look, you've just got to manage it. And try not to take it personally. I do. Unfortunately, I take a lot personally. So
many people.
But I just, look, you win some and you lose some, mate. So you're not going to win all the time, and you've just got to be, the one thing I've learned, the one thing I learned is that sometimes you've got to say no as well, because you've got to say no and be able to walk away. And I struggle with that, because you want to sell everything and you want to convert every sale, and I found that hard early on, but I'm not so much now, because there's no point doing business if you're losing money, right? So, as one of my bosses used to say, he'd prefer to go broke staying at home. So, So anyway, it is. But it's fun. That's part of what I enjoy. I enjoy the challenge of, because every visit was a challenge. And you get a thrill when you sell to someone, and more importantly, you get a thrill when you get a product on a floor that they do well with. It's also important to you've got to care about it. It's not just a sale. You've got to care. That's another one of the other things I do, mate. Is I'm very selective with. I try and understand what a particular market is in an area, and what I think will work or not work. And that doesn't mean I don't show people my whole catalogue, but I will try and identify what I think might work. And so you've got to care about your customer as well. Not just care about the sale. You've got to care what will work and what won't work, because if you sell them something that's not going to work, you're going to get a sale, but you're not going to get much after that initial sale. So I always try and look at things with longevity in mind. I'm looking at the end game, not just the short or the immediate results. So there's a number of factors, but that's what makes this industry exciting and the job exciting.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I love it. It's pretty cool. So, and like you would go to those shops like cold, or you would call them before?
Generally regionally. Regionally, you'd make appointments, because the one thing that you just wouldn't want is to, let's say, drive to Moree for 9 hours for the prop not to be there, for the proprietor not to be there. So yeah, I would generally make appointments, but I got myself into a routine where guys basically knew when I was coming. So and they knew my routine was that rigid that they would know the particular day, so they'd have an idea of what week it'd be, and then they could. I literally tried to keep the same call cycle, like order of call cycle as well. So, they'd know that stores that almost would know that I would be in on a Tuesday, or they'd know it was a Wednesday, Thursday. So they could sort of drill down to know even the day I was coming. But I would always ring the week before just to make sure, because it's a long way to travel if they're not there.
Yeah. So, and is it easy like to just call them and say, listen, Yeah, it
is now. It's not when you start. It's not.
Yeah. So how was it? Like when you were starting, you would call and then.
Yeah, I would call and I would introduce myself and say, look, I'm coming out your way, and some people, look, I'm on holidays this week, or we're doing a stock take. Don't bother, that type of thing. But you've really just got to. You just can't give up. So, and you just keep. You wear people down eventually. I find you wear them down. So, and you take no for an you can't take no for an answer. Ultimately, that's what you're doing. Is you're not taking no for an answer.
So for you call and just listen. I have my wholesaler or whatever. I have the product.
Yeah.
Like I'm not interested. Then what would you do?
I'd go, well, look, how about I come out and show you some stuff anyway, and you've always got to try and find the positive spin, right? And you've got to get them to a point where they can't, where you just wear them down and they say, okay, just come out. I want you off the phone. So yes, come out and show me. But yeah, you've just got to wear them down and just take no. You can't take no for an answer. So and a lot of it's instinct, right? So there's no script that you can write. You can have a basic idea of how you're going to present and what you're going to do, but a lot of it's off the cuff because it's instinct. It is reactions. When you're having a conversation with someone, it's about their reaction at the time. So you sort of got to be able to read a little bit of body language. There's all of that type of thing, right? So it's not just words sometimes as well. When you're in front, that's why I hate email and texting. It's quite impersonal. So, and you can't read a tone or a body language, or and there's no tone expressed because it's all just letters, right? So, it's always good to be in front of somebody, and be able to pick up on their energy.
Yeah, can you give some examples, like or remember your maybe like top 3 or 5 bad good experiences where it just kind of went smooth or where it was just a disaster?
Well, look, when I first started with Dixie, and I hope anybody watching this doesn't get offended or mind that but I've told this story to a lot of people. So when I went out to regional New South Wales, and I don't know who was in the role before me, but let's just say the regional New South Wales guys had felt neglected, right? So they hadn't seen anyone for quite a time, and I remember going in, and I won't name the store. I remember going into a store in Young, southern New South Wales, and whatever experience he had with Dixie prior to me starting, he sort of let it out on me. So as soon as I walked in, I walked up to the counter, and he was behind the counter, and I put my hand out, introduced myself, and as soon as I said, "Trade from Dixie Cummings," he just looked at me and he goes, "Get the fuck out of my shop."
Really?
Yeah. So
This and that, right?
yeah, he said, "Mate, get the fuck out of my shop." He said, "I'll never buy Dixie again in my life." And I didn't know what, he was actually that abrupt and blunt. I started to laugh because I didn't know what to do. I just started laughing. I went, "Oh, okay." Right, I was just, I was just blindsided. Anyway, I got to the door. It's about 100 metres to the front door of his shop, and then he yelled out. He said, "Oh, look, while you're here, you might as well show me," because I just said, "Oh, okay," and I laughed and started to exit. And yeah, so I think, like I said, I think people are reasonable, and he probably would have known that I was Sydney based, and I'd driven 5-6 hours to get there, and I think I ended up coming back into his shop. I showed him product, but I will say it took me the good part of 2 years before he brought anything.
No, really?
Yes, he didn't, but I kept going to his shop. Every time I was in Young, I would go into his shop.
Just for 2 years?
For 2 years, yes.
You would just stop by?
I would stop by, and I never missed his shop. I'd go in, and I would go in, and every time it'd be no, no, no. And then finally, after 2 years, you wear them down, mate. You wear them down, and he goes, "Yeah, okay." And he ordered a container of lounge off me.
Wow.
1 lounge suite, container of lounge. But that was 2 years. But the moral to the story is, if after that first visit I never returned, I don't do business with him ever. So, and it wasn't out of my way because I was already in the town. So there were other people that I had to go there anyway to see other customers. So to walk in for 5 minutes, to be told no, that wasn't really, it wasn't out of my way, right? So,
but still stressful, right?
Yes and no. I mean, I used to just see the fun of it. Like I used to find it funny because I knew what the answer was going to be, but I'd just go in anyway. And I'd go in and, I would sort of lightheartedly say, "Oh, mate, I've got some stuff to show you." And he'd go, "Mate, no, not interested." But finally I got him.
So how did it happen?
I forget. I was just in there one day. I walked in like I did one day after going to see him religiously for 2 years. And I said, "Mate, I've got a really good deal on these." I think we were doing a 3RR plus R plus R for like $4.99. Like it was a ridiculous price.
Cheap,
yeah, really cheap. And he couldn't resist it. Right, so it wasn't because of me. I guess it was because the product was irresistible to him. But I had to put it again. You've got to be there and you've got to put it under their nose, right? Or otherwise they don't see it and you miss an opportunity. So. But yeah, 2 years, it was tough. It was tough, but you just sort of laugh. It comes back in sales. You're not going to win every time. You win some, you lose some, but you've got to stay in the fight. Or otherwise, if you're not in the fight, you get nowhere, right?
And then after he bought 1 container, like how did it go?
Yeah, I think the container went okay. I can't remember. I actually shortly after that, I moved into the warehouse. So I internally, my position changed, where I moved in and looked after. I went in as the warehouse manager for our Sydney operation. So I don't know if there was a backup order or not. They employed another guy who came in and took over that position, and I'm assuming serviced him. I hope he did anyway.
Okay. And why was it this transition from sales into the warehouse?
Because I felt at the time that our warehouse was so you basically got your sales team, which are your front end. They're your face, and they're the guys that go out and represent the company. And then you've got your back end, which is your office and your warehouse, right? They've both got to be in sync and they've both got to be working, because if one of them's not working, the whole thing doesn't work. It's really important that they've got to both be working. And I felt that the warehouse was broken. just from my being there and witnessing certain things, I thought there was things in that warehouse that were really broken, and I expressed those views to the boss, and I expressed them to the boss, and he said, "Well, mate, if you think you can fix them,
Go
for it." So I found myself in the warehouse, and I think we fixed them. Like I think the Sydney operation went from dispatching a couple of 100,000 a week up to, and then we got up to like $1 million, 800,000 to $1 million dispatched orders a week. Yeah.
Wow.
And again, that there was not that. I mean, warehousing is not hard. It's, well, there are circumstances that happen that make things harder than they should be. But generally speaking, all you're doing is your stock comes in, it sits in the warehouse, and then it goes out. Everything's coded. There's barcodes in it, or not barcodes, but you've got your product codes and that sort of thing, and you've got your numbers. So, what I did is I just added some structure, and I added some structure to our deliveries. I went out and one of the first things I did is I went out to each of our Sydney Metro stores, and I said, "We are coming to deliver to you on a Tuesday every week. Whatever you don't take, you're not getting delivery." So what I did is I put structure in place. So what that allows your retailer to do, if they know that there's something in stock, right, and let's say they sell it on the Wednesday, they know that the following Tuesday they can tell their customer then. So what it does is it provides certainty. It provides certainty for everybody, not just our warehouse. So what I would do is, so I basically, the Sydney Metro, I cut up into quarters, and I would send all trucks so on a Tuesday they'd go to one quarter, and what that allowed us to do, it allowed us anything that didn't fit on one truck, we'd put on another truck. So we made sure everybody got their delivery and got all of their delivery. So, if things were left off trucks, one of the other trucks would pick it up because they'd be in that area, And so, yeah, it was just structure. And one of the things I've learned, I guess, through sport is that if you practice, if you're doing the same thing repetitively, you get better at it, right? So and that was sort of the philosophy I used with the warehousing. I got people into certain roles, and look, I'm not saying they stayed on there, but I had them in there for long chunks of time, long periods of time, because the more they do it, the better they get at it. So there's a balance there, because you don't want these guys to get bored, but at the same time, you need to find the maximum efficiency out of your group of people, and constantly changing people around. I've found that quite that was more destructive for efficiency and so what I'd do for long periods of time, I'd have people in doing the one role, and they got better at it. They just got quicker. You'd naturally get better if you're operating a forklift or a high reach. If you're doing it every day, you just get quicker and better. You just get better at it. So, and we just got more efficient, and that's where. And so, yeah, I didn't know anything about warehousing. And look, I'm not a warehouse guru. Work health and safety, I'm not across that. So I definitely had deficiencies when it came to the warehouse side of things. More around the red tape and more around the work health and safety and some other things. But to get an operation to work as efficiently as I could get it, that was my strength. And it was just putting structures in place. And it's as simple as before I took on the role, guys were just having lunch when they wanted to have lunch, right? So I made everyone have lunch together, right?
So they were separated.
That everyone was separated. So you'd have a couple of guys who'd go to lunch at 11 o'clock, a couple would go here, a couple would go, right? I made them all have lunch together for two reasons. One was that I then knew I knew that everyone was at lunch at the same, so when they had to come back, You could then tell your customer, if anyone was coming to pick up, don't come between 12 and 1 because people are at lunch. When you implement something, people just think it's like a big brother. A lot of the time they think it's like a big brother thing that, you're telling them when they have to do this or when they have to do that. But in fact, it's a lot more simple than that. What you're actually trying to do is you're actually just trying to get some structure so that it helps with other aspects of the business.
Okay.
So.
And so that was different, right? So you made them have the lunch at the same time.
Yep.
So what else, like, that was before you came and then after you came? So one, like, you started to deliver to one area.
Yep.
On the specific
Yep.
day of the week, right? So if anything is missing, so it goes there.
Yep.
Second, like a lunch.
Yeah, like just little things, right? So it was just little things. But I also gave that. So I'm very big on working smart, right? And what I would do is I would encourage it. So I would give them incentive. I'd give the guys incentives as well, because people need to be incentivized, right? So to give you an example, what I would do is I would look at something that I needed done, that had to get done within a certain time frame, and I would say to the guys, when you finish this, you can go home. So the way I did it, because you couldn't keep going and asking the company to increase salaries, right? So what I'd do is I'd pay them in time. And by that, I would say, mate, if you can get this done for me, I'll give you half day, like leave early on Friday or leave early. And it's only a couple of hours here or a couple of hours there, but you're paying them in time and they're appreciative of it. And when you're saying to guys, listen, can you get something done? And as soon as you finish it, you can leave for the day. You'd be surprised how quickly they can get things done. Like where I work now, I've just had an instance where it was, I think it was the day before the Easter last year, the day before the Easter break. And these guys were telling me that it was going to take them a day and a half to pick this product. And I said, well, it can't take a day and a half. It's got to be picked today, right? And I said, as soon as you finish, you can go home. Well, they were done by lunchtime. So in the morning, they're trying to convince me that all this work was going to take them a day and a half. And by lunchtime, they'd finished everything. So, you've got to, but you've got to incentivize people. You've got to know what makes them tick. And I wasn't able to always do it with money. So I would do it with time. And it never compromised it didn't compromise our work, because it wouldn't be everybody, but I did it fairly so that everybody got their equal allotment of, a couple of hours off here, a couple of hours off there. So.
Did you like working in the warehouse?
Yeah, I did. What I enjoyed is that I enjoyed learning. I knew that it was going to make me a lot more well-rounded.
Uh-huh.
So understanding the warehouse and the complications and, and the day-to-day of the warehouse helped me understand it for sales and vice versa. So I just knew that it was going to make me a more well-rounded furniture person and understand the business. So, yeah, I enjoyed it. I probably prefer the sales side. I do prefer the sales, but I've got no regrets doing what I did, because it's put me in good stead. Yeah.
And what are the complications of the warehouse? If you could pick 3, 2, 1.
Well, managing people's the hardest. Staff is the hardest. It's not it's quite physical, right? The work's physical, and it's work that, most people probably don't grow up dreaming of doing. Like, it's not something that people, I want to be a warehouse worker when they're little kids, right? So for whatever reason, they find themselves doing that job. And I used to appreciate that it wasn't, that you've got to understand that sort of thing as well. That's really hard. But managing people, it's a fine line between managing people and having empathy for them. But you've got a job to do, right? and I just wanted to. I wanted us to continually improve. So that's a balancing act. But yeah, managing people's the hardest, and generally they let you get let down. Like if people knew that there was going to be a busy day, you'd have 2 or 3 would ring up sick, right? So I mean, they could have been legitimately sick, but people let you down too. So staff would let you down. That was a big one. We would have flooding. It'd rain. The roof would leak, so you had to deal with things that you weren't prepared to deal with. You have trucks break down, so you had to. We had one truck. We had one truck break down. I had to send another guy down, and that throws your whole route. That throws routine out. So you can't plan for that sort of thing. You have to deal with it when it happens. So the unforeseen things that are unforeseen that pop up, you've just got to be able to deal with it. But I think having structures in place and doing what we did, that made it easier for us to deal with those sort of things. If it was chaos, and then you throw chaos on top of chaos, it's not a good outcome.
Yeah.
But if you've got things in place, and you've got some certainty here, you can deal with one lot of chaos, right? So it helps you, puts you in good stead there. But yeah, it was good. I learn a lot. I have an appreciation for how hard it is physically, the warehouse. I have a little bit of empathy, but at the same time, ultimately, you've just got to get the job done.
In Australian furniture industry, you're a wholesaler, you have a warehouse, so you put the product on the floor in the different shops. And then when the retailers sell, you deliver from the warehouse straight to customer's house?
No.
Or how?
No. So generally when the retailer sells, we dock to dock. So from our dock, it'll go to the retailer's dock, and then they organise their own delivery. We don't go to the end consumer.
No?
No.
Like never?
Never.
Okay. And the reason?
Oh, there's various reasons. One, they're not our customer. There's some liability issues. So to give you an example, if our guys, if one of our, I'll give you an example. Actually, we had some guys go into the house. I think one of them hit the wall with his elbow, but what it did is it knocked a big glass mirror off the wall and took out some parquetry, took out some big chunks of parquetry flooring, hardwood floor. You then have to replace that, right? So what you want to try and do is you want to try and eliminate a lot of that, and them not really being our customer, we wanted to keep at arm's length from that. So we go into the retailer, it's their customer. They're the ones that sell at a retail. Like the margin in wholesale, you can't afford those sort of things happen, because your margin in wholesale is not as great as retail. And so I think it's just the nature of the business as well. Like it's always been that way. I'm sure we could possibly do it, and I'm sure there's a lot of retailers that if we offered that service, we could. They would take us up on that, but it's not something we've done. The other thing is you've got, because we've got the bigger trucks, you've got weight restrictions and size restrictions in residential streets as well. So look, there's a couple of reasons why we do dock to dock, or well, we don't do home delivery.
Yeah, I see. But then on the boxes it still says your name, right? The wholesaler's name.
Yep.
Either it's Dixie, Coral Bay, or any other. So, do anyone ever complain about this?
Well, customers have the option to put their own markings on it, right? So, a customer generally, they have the option to put whatever markings they want on the box. Actually, it's probably a good question. I don't know why people leave the Dixie or the Coral Bay or the Viven logos on. I'm not sure why they do that, but yeah, every customer has the ability to put their own markings on it.
But then how would they do that if you imported it to your warehouse, you order like 5 containers, for example?
Yep.
And then it's already printed on the boxes, right? So
yeah,
how would the shop retailer put their marking on it?
No. So that's all done before it's shipped. Sorry, that's all done before it's shipped. The one thing the one thing I'm just thinking about it now. The one reason why we do probably, so as you know, especially as a wholesaler, we hold product for let's say a retailer. If it has the retailer's markings on it, it doesn't allow us to sell anywhere else if they decide to discontinue, right? So that's probably one of the upsides to having your own logo on it, is that if they decide to discontinue, to quit the stock and leave you holding a bunch of stock, it's not going to, it makes it difficult if it's got someone else's markings on it. So that's probably one of the reasons that that you keep it consistent and have your own wholesale markings on. But now people have the opportunity to put whatever markings they want on the boxes.
If they order a container.
Yes.
But then if they order less than a container, then they...
Don't know, mate. I'm actually not even sure. Like they could probably still put the markings on. I couldn't see why they couldn't. But.
Okay. So what are the main reasons people using wholesalers in Australia? Can't they import by themselves, for example? Or like what is the role of the wholesaler?
Yeah, I think the wholesaler, it generally comes down to the retailer's business model. They may not, they're not responsible for the product at all until they buy it, right? So generally with a wholesaler, the wholesaler offers up a story, warehouse option, obviously. They generally offer lines of credit, so they don't have to pay, if you're going through a wholesaler, you're not paying 30% up front and then paying when the product's shipped. Generally, as wholesalers, they will generally give a line of credit. So to give you an example, one of my customers, they don't pay deposits. We wholesale for them, and then they get 30 days end of month. So they can sell the product and have the money in the bank before they have to pay for it. Whereas if you're doing it directly, you might get it a little cheaper, but you're outlaying, you're funding it right from the start. You're using your money.
Is it the main reason, or also it comes to MOQ and things like that? No, not necessarily. Well, yes, MOQ probably, yes, for the retailer. Yeah, that's right. So again, they're not responsible. So if they may select something, or they select this table here, and this table's a flop, they can walk away. Whereas the wholesaler, he's holding it, and he's paid for it, and he's holding it and responsible for it. The retailer goes, oh, thanks, but it's not working for us. We'll see it, And are there any options to kind of get them to commit to that product, or like?
It's very hard, mate.
Very hard.
Very, very hard. Yeah.
So like there is no security for a wholesaler whenever.
The only security is money, and generally they haven't paid you for it, right? So that's the only whoever's got the money in their bank accounts has the upper hand, right? So there's really no recourse. They can walk away, and there's no recourse for the wholesaler that I know of. The wholesaler takes all the risk. Really, they take all the risk.
They take all the risk.
They take all of the risk. Yeah.
Like financial.
Yeah.
If there are any problems with the product, if it's cracking, right? Like that's all
correct.
Risk, right? So, and that's one of the biggest role of the wholesaler.
Yes.
Okay. And for the wholesaler, what do you call it? Segmentation of the clients, like small mom and dad shop.
Yep.
Then Harvey Norman, like a huge retail chain.
Yep.
Right. Then somewhere in the middle, like guys like 40 Wings and others. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you group them? Like,
Well, generally, you generally group them from your potential highest earner, like that. So for most wholesalers, and it's probably no secret, your Harvey Norman's going to be your
number one.
number one. So they're your priority because they're going to sell more. You're going to make more money. They're going to make more money. You're going to make more money. That's pretty much. And so you go where the business is, right? So, but that's not saying. And look, Harvey Norman, they have really good security behind them because they're a national retailer. Whereas your mum and dad stores, who, they're living, they're only as good as, their own personal financial position. Whereas Harvey's, there's that added security of them being they're a powerhouse really in Australia for retail. So, as a wholesaler, you have that safety net of their size and financial, their financial position, I guess.
And what is the reason that Harvey Norman wouldn't buy it direct?
I can't give you the reason. I think it's just their business model. It's worked for them, so they probably figure they don't have. There's no change. I would say probably the biggest is the after sales and the warranty side of things, because everything gets pushed back to the wholesaler. So all they're really doing, they're a shop front and they facilitate a sale. All the problems get pushed back generally onto the wholesaler. I mean, they've got reviews that they've got to, there are reviews that they may have to deal with, online reviews and that sort of thing. But the actual cost and anything that's problematic with the product gets pushed back for the wholesaler to deal with. So,
would you agree that probably their business model is just built around like selling stuff, and it's a big like part of work just to run retail shops, like to organize it, to set it up? It's like it's huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so they just concentrate on that, and they simply like don't have enough, I don't know, like resources to concentrate on their import, or like.
Yeah, probably. Again, I think it comes back to just, it's been their business model forever, and it's served them well, right? Like, they go great. They're as strong a retailer as anyone in Australia, if not the strongest.
Yeah.
So it works from the business model that they've got, and they've had for as long as I've been in the industry, is working for them. So they probably, who's to say they're not? They may decide to direct import at some point, but and I'm sure that they could do it. Like, I think they're in a position that if they really wanted to, I don't think it's money or resources, because they could throw both behind getting a.
Maybe it's like more. It gives them flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of in a way when they.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So there's the Harvey Norman, who is the biggest retailer in Australia and the biggest client for wholesalers.
Yeah, generally, yeah.
Generally, right? And then, what would be the second group? And then,
then you've got your national. You got your national. So, for wholesalers, or generally speaking, because then you've got the A-marts, you've got Super A-mart.
Oh, that's how you.
Yeah, I mean, Harvey's from a wholesaler's perspective is extremely important.
Yeah.
But you've got some other big retailers, like you've got Super A-mart, Nick Scali, Focus on Furniture. So there's Freedom Furniture, absolutely. So there's some big customers, big retailers. A lot of those guys are direct importers. So and they make it work for them.
And from what I understand, they import directly, plus they buy from wholesalers.
Yeah, they can do. Yeah.
Right, and so again, is it because of the flexibility? They can select different products.
I think so. I think it's that. And I mean, you buy direct, you're buying better too, right?
Yeah.
There's, I mean, a wholesaler's not doing it for free, so there's a margin that's built into buying through wholesale. I guess they look at these retailers are looking at a business model that works for them. They want to maximise their full margin, and by doing that, they're buying as clean as they can buy, which is direct. And I would say the reason that they do direct containers and then they buy a little bit out of wholesale, it's just to maintain a balance. Maybe, I don't know, not have all your eggs in the one basket. It's just to hedge your bets, I guess, with your continuity of supply and that type of thing.
And do you think the wholesale business in Australia will stay there for a long time, or it used to be better before and now it's kind of
it's tougher? It's definitely tougher. Yeah.
Tougher. Why is it tougher?
I think because more and more you're getting more people travel, more people looking to buy direct. You've got more competition in the wholesale space as well. So yeah, look, we've just come off 3 years of COVID sales, so it's starting to tighten up again because we've got interest rate rises and cost of living pressures in Australia at the moment. So retail spending's down. I think there's always going to be a need for wholesale because not everybody wants to travel. B, can afford it. And what I mean by it's more their time, not so much financially can afford to travel, but if you've got people, mum and dads that run stores, they can't afford to be out of the store, right? So they can't afford to be traveling for a week or 2 weeks at a time, going to these shows and stuff. So I think there'll always be a space for the wholesaler. I think it's going to get a lot more competitive and tougher. I think it's definitely going to be tougher. And I think there's going to be increasing opportunity for direct container business as well.
What is influencing the trends in the Australian market, and how do you understand that this is going to be the next trend?
You don't. I think a lot of it's luck, mate. I'll be honest with you. That's one of the things I've really had to manage, because I have a different taste to you. You have a different taste to the next person. So I've found it really difficult because I always look at something that I will like, and I know that I can't do that. I can't afford to do that. I can't believe some of the stuff that sells in Australia, and it's only because it's my personal opinion and I don't like it, but that doesn't mean that other people aren't going to like it. So I don't know if there's any right answer there. I think I don't know whether there are other countries and we have influences in Australia like every other country does. So whether or not there's an aspect of that influences certain trends and stuff like that, but a lot of it's just luck, I think. And again, coming back to sort of understanding your market, you've got to understand your market, at least have an understanding of it, and then that then helps you with the selection process. But sometimes it's just dumb luck, I think. You see something and it'll just wow you. There's an X factor to it. It's like people. It's like the tens of thousands of people that apply for singing shows, and there might be 1,000 that sound great, but there's an X factor in certain people, right? And that gets them in front of that gets them into that next part, which is not too dissimilar to furniture. Sometimes there's just an X factor with a certain product, and you go, wow.
Basically, there is no procedure on selecting the product or estimating, okay, this is going to be the next trend. Nobody is looking into the magazines or anything like that. Wholesaler would just travel to the furniture shows in Southeast Asia, Vietnam, China, Malaysia.
Yeah.
They see something, they think it would sell, and then they buy it. Or how does it work?
Yeah, and you get feedback from your customer as well. So a lot of wholesale sailors, in order to minimise their risk, will always look for feedback. I certainly because I head up the bedding category now for a wholesaler. I will look at something, and if I like it, I will then forward a render, or I'll forward something on to get feedback first. Because if I've got no interest from my customer, then I'm only going to be important to sit in a warehouse, right? So, but yeah, look, there are things that you can do. You're right. You can look on websites. A lot of what I do from a betting perspective, I will look at websites. I'll look at magazines. I will look at various other, and not just Australian. I'll look at international websites. Or other countries, websites. So that's all part of it. But yeah, there's no straight process that I know of anyway. A lot of the guys like the Rob Cummings, Dave Pearce, a lot of these guys that have been in wholesale for a long time, they've just got a really good eye and they've got a good understanding of the product that's going to work. And I think that just comes down to experience. Yeah,
it comes with experience, watchfulness.
Yep.
So when you
and they just get a gut feel about things. I'm there. I'm sort of half there, but I still don't want. These guys will take risks as well. They'll sometimes look at something, and are that confident it'll work. They'll bring it in without even getting feedback. Whereas I'm not there yet. I really want to. If I see something I like, I will then forward it to gauge an interest from a customer. And if there's if I don't get an interest back, I'll move on to the next thing.
Basically, wholesalers buying the product which they see, they don't develop anything new by themselves, or.
Oh, I think that. Look, yeah, no, I think that they do develop. How much of the development they do from scratch, I'm not sure. I think, and I can only speak from my experience with Bedroom. I definitely haven't developed anything from scratch. I will get an idea, so I will look at something, and then I may add, or I may take out, and and change it enough that it's different. But generally speaking, I will look at something, and I'm generally referencing something as a starting point. I'm not at the point yet where I'm thinking of something in my head and I can put it down in a drawing or a render or whatever. So,
you'll take a picture.
Yeah, take pictures. I've got thousands of images where I'll just be walking in a store or be walking past a retail store or something like that, and I'll take a picture, again, just as my reference point, and then I'll come back to Wood Concepts and I'll say, I like this bed, but can we change this, or can you do this? And then you'll normally come back to me with a render, and then that goes to the customer. That'll go to numerous customers, and then if I get a hit, then we proceed. We go to sample and then hopefully get a sale and some containers.
You need the samples to be done, air freighted to you, shipped to you. It's very difficult to close the sales just from the picture.
It's difficult, yes. And that's probably the difficulty with the Australian consumer. And I don't think that's just indicative. I think it's indicative of the Australian consumer, from the wholesaler to the supplier to the end consumer. Because even the end consumers, and I'm one of them. I'll go to 100 stores. If I'm looking for a couch, I'll go to every store before I make it, because I want to see everything that's available, right? And then I make a decision. My wife says I'm a procrastinator, and maybe I do procrastinate, but I'm always wanting the best. I'm always looking at everything that's available so that the decision I make, I know is the right decision I've made at the time. And I think that that's no different for a wholesaler, retailer. I think they just want to know that they've seen everything that's available and that they're making the best decision for them at that time. So, but that's the Aussies. Like I said, I've worked on a stand where guys, you've got retailers from other countries. They walk on a stand, see something they like, they negotiate exclusivity, and then they're writing checks for deposits and or remitting monies on the stand to get it underway. But then again, they're looking at they're at a show and looking at the product in the flesh. So yeah, it is hard. It's hard via picture, via an image. But I've got to say the renders are getting much, much better.
Renders.
12 years ago, mate, the images you'd get were grainy and never in the right colour fabric. They were shitty. Now
It's almost real. Like
it's almost real. Yeah,
sometimes you can't tell if it's a render or the picture.
100%. Like that. That's really improved over my time in the industry, and you guys do a great job.
Thank you.
So with that sort of thing.
What is the reason in the wholesale, and also from what I know in Harvey Norman, it's different, like bedding, dining, why it's not all together? Why do they separate buying departments? Like you are taking care of the bedding, why wouldn't you take care of dining as well? Because it all comes.
I think it just comes down to managing resources and whether or not, the one thing I'm not saying I couldn't do dining, but the one thing I like about just being focused on bedroom is that's my focus, that I don't have to work, and that's good for me, right? Because I've got that one focus rather than sort of being divided in time, like with my time on other things. It's really good. I was only talking about that with a colleague of mine, and it's really difficult because sometimes you're working with a customer at one particular time, and it may consume a week, it may consume 2, 3, 4 weeks of your time just trying to get this one thing done for a couple, like working with this customer to get a sale over the line, but you've neglected everybody, like you've neglected all your other customers. So to answer your question simply, it's probably just time management, and that's why people divide up their time, or that's why I guess in Coral Bay's instance, that's why Dave looks at having one person specifically for dining, obviously bedding, and I've got to say it's good for me, right? And then he looks after the upholstery side with the lounge, which he's good. That's his thing. He's a upholsterer by trade, and he does a good job on the lounge side of things. So I guess it's people's strengths, as utilising person's strengths as well. But yeah, good from my own experience, just good to have that single focus, which is bedding.
In furniture industry, how does it break down between lounges, bedroom, dining? What would be the percentage for the market consumption in a way?
I would say 60-65% lounge. Lounge is everything, really. I would say then probably maybe 15-20% bedroom, and then dining makes up the rest, 10% dining. So, and I wouldn't be too far off there. I reckon that's probably where we're at. And when we talk about bedding, you've then got there's another pie there where probably 80% of bedroom is mattress, not actually furniture. So, but definitely lounge is by far the number one category in my opinion, and it's at least 60% of sales from a wholesaler's perspective.
Mostly it comes from China, the lounges.
Yeah, mostly. Yeah,
mostly China.
Mostly China. Yeah.
And for Australian importing market, like how does it break down? China, Vietnam, Malaysia. What are the countries Australia import from?
Okay, so for lounge, definitely for lounge, China. Bedding and dining, there's really good take up in Vietnam, and then Malaysia, you've got your fabric beds. Malaysia, there's a lot of fabric bed. Vietnam, definitely China has dining and bedroom as well. They have every category covered, but I think not so much lounge out of Vietnam. There's not a lot of lounge, but really good with the bedroom and dining side of things, and like your acacias and the acacia side of things and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, China's still the big brother when it comes to furniture, I think.
Thank you very much for your time, mate. That's
No problem.
yeah, I really appreciate it.
Any time for you, mate. Any time.